Hello and welcome to a new episode of Race Recap, the show where we provide you with all the key insights and crucial information from each weekend's feeder series racing. My name's Thomas Rose, and after F1 Academy began its 2026 season, it only made sense to bring on our second Race Recap guest, one Calla Kra-Caskey. So Calla, F2 and F3 finally returned to the track last week after an off-season that felt all too long. This weekend, it was the return of F1 Academy at Shanghai. And as with F2 and Invicta last week, the reigning champions have completely changed their lineup. And this weekend, it was the return of F1 Academy at Shanghai. And as with F2 and Invicta last week, the reigning champions have completely overhauled their driver lineup. 2025 F1 Academy champion Dorian Pan has returned to sports car racing after winning the championship with Prema last year. Nina Gadaman, meanwhile, has jumped ship to MP, and Tina Hausman has left the series. Her plans for 2026 are yet to be announced. In to replace them are Matilda Patz, who arrives as Aston Martin's designated driver, Peyton Westcott, who is Mercedes' own back driver, and Natalia Granada, who is completely new to this level of racing. So Calla, with plenty of new rookies in this year's field, who stood out to you the most?
Yeah, we have a really large crop of rookies this year. There's 11. 7 of them we've seen before in an F1 Academy weekend. But one of the ones we haven't seen before is Natalia Granada, who's on Prema, like you mentioned. And she was a really big positive surprise for me. This is her first weekend in single-seaters ever. From what I know, she has not had a lot of testing in 2025 or before, although she has been associated with the Iron Dames program. And in her very first race, she was starting P2 in the reverse grid qualifying. That means she qualified 7th, which is a really solid position for her first qualifying session ever. And I can't lie, I was kind of expecting her to slip down through the field. No shame in that. We've seen that a lot with less experienced drivers, and that's how reverse grid races in general sometimes go. And not only was she able to hold on to her spot, but she kept Nina Gademan, who had a really strong and solid race. And Natalia kept her honest through the whole race. She had the lead down under a second at points. So I was really impressed with Natalia Granada. With that podium on her single-seater debut completely. I thought that was really strong and more than I was expecting from her. So I was happy to be surprised there. I think in race 2, she probably came down to earth a little bit. She had that first lap collision with Rafaela Ferrero, which I think was ruled a racing incident, but that's part of the learning. And I think it was important for her to have a really strong start. And just the cherry on the cake is a P2 in her first race ever.
So yeah, I think what it speaks to is that it's just really, really smart recruiting from Prema. Of course, they're the reigning champions. So of all the teams to go out and recruit somebody who's never run a single-seater race before, who is effectively completely unproven at this level, it speaks to her talent as a driver that she was picked up by the reigning champions. We know that karting can be a proving ground for these guys. Kimi Antonelli, he just won his first ever F1 race. He was first scouted, first kind of mentioned during his karting days. I think it really shows how, a strong karting season can really set you up. But kind of going across the whole weekend, were there any particular highlights or performances that stood out to you?
I'm just going to go back to rookies really quick because I was thinking about Prema still. And, one of their other drivers also got a podium this weekend, and that was Peyton Westcott. Now, has significantly more single-seater experience under her belt. She has that year of Italian F4 where she didn't have a particularly impressive season, but she's also been doing the winter series. She's been getting up into the points in UAE4. And I think she is one of the rookies that people expected to do best. She has a single-seaters win under her belt with a Formula Trophy last December. And so she scored a podium in the second race, which was great as well. So I think for Prema, that's showing that they can have success even when Dorian Pin is gone, having graduated, Nina Gadaman shifted to MP. I think that's really good for the team. And I think that type of quiet, really solid race weekend is impressive for Peyton Westcott to have. And, to contrast with a couple other rookies, there's some people I want to see more from because I know that they can do more. I think Rachel Robertson has impressed me with her willingness to get into these battles. She's also relatively new to single seaters. She was basically an unknown name before the rookie test. She did some of F4 Saudi Arabia last November, December, and was doing mid-pack in it. She was just getting her first laps under her belt there. And she had some good racing moments towards the bottom of the points in F1 Academy this weekend, which kind of ended with the crash with Wildcard Shue, which she was penalized for. So I want to see her put together a cleaner weekend while still, being that daring and being willing to get into the fights like she was. And one more person I want to see be a little more daring is Ella Stevens, who's the second McLaren backs driver. She topped the rookie test that kind of led to her getting her spot with McLaren, and she just kind of hovered around P11, P12 for most of the weekend. So I want to see her get into some fights because I think she has more in her.
Yeah, I think in terms of drivers, I think I'd like to see more as well. I'm going to bring up Alba Larson, the Ferrari designated driver. I think, there was contact in the first race that kind of hampered her progress, and it wasn't a particularly brilliant showing in the second, but I feel like we know what she can do. Ferrari, of course, a team steeped in history. They've obviously chosen her for a reason, and that's because they believe that she's got a lot of talent behind her. So I think heading into Canada at the Circus Gilles Villeneuve, I think I'd like to see a bit more of a uptick in form from her. But I think the one driver we haven't mentioned that we absolutely should is Emma Felbermayr. What a weekend for her.
Yeah, Emma was really fantastic. I think I think she slipped under the radar for a lot of people. I think when you're listing the 6 full-time returning names, she's one of the people that a lot of people don't think of. People think of Alicia Palmowski, and Ella Lloyd, who were 4th and 5th and 4th last year, and Alba Larson, who is one of the people you see all across F1 Academy and who was fast this weekend. But I think Emma Felbermayr kind of slipped under a lot of people's radar. And then she goes and she qualifies P3, which is great. It's not the position you're like, okay, she's going to win. In the reverse grid race, she makes it onto the podium. Fantastic. Climbing up a lot of positions. She had a couple good overtakes there, I think, on Billard and Ferreira, if I'm remembering correctly. And obviously with that bad start from Palmowski, Felbermayr slotted into second behind Larson at the beginning of the feature race, and then took advantage when Larson went off track on the restart, and then held on from a lot of pressure behind her to win that feature race, and is now leading the championship. So, and I think, a lot of this might not have been something we're expecting to see exiting the first round, Emma Felbermayr in the lead. I think it does make sense to me. I remember last year being really impressed with in Miami. She got overtaken by Dorian Penn, and then she went and re-overtook Penn. So I think she's always been willing to get into these battles. I've always seen her as a good overtaker, and I think her putting it together this season and keeping things clean, I think she could be a really strong championship contender throughout the season.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of happy hunting grounds, you couldn't get much more of a happy hunting ground for her when we go to Canada, because that, of course, is the next round of the season. And it's where she got her sole win of her inaugural campaign of F1 Academy. She finished 10th last year in the standings in 2025. But if the form that she's currently on is to be believed, she's different gravy compared to last season in what we're seeing from her this weekend. I think that's really, really awesome to have like another driver who maybe you wouldn't have expected her to do so well in that first weekend. And we'll see if it's a bit of a fluke or not. I suspect it isn't a fluke with the way she drove across that weekend. But in terms of the championship battle, we of course have got a finale in Las Vegas, one of the most glamorous places you could have a finale of a motorsport championship. But who do you think will be there and abouts when we go to the strip to fight for that title?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of championship between now and then, with hopefully having 7 rounds, 6 confirmed at the moment. But I think my contenders are mostly the same as they were going into this weekend. Obviously, Felbermayr has really stamped her place on that list. I am remiss to have forgotten her when I was previewing this weekend. So Felbermayr, I think, definitely will be up here. Like you said, I don't think this is a fluke. I think this is part of her, having more experience under her belt and being able to show her speed. Similarly, Alicia, she had a really strong pole position. She took pole in China on Friday by almost 0.5 of a second, almost half a second. So that was really strong. Actually, I was looking it up, and that was a similar margin to how Maya took pole in China last year. So it's a track where we're seeing this big gap emerge on the front, but it was really close behind Alba in second. So it was really impressive for Alicia to be able to get that lap on the board. And I think in the future race, she just had a bad start, and Emma had some excellent defending. So I think that race is one Alicia will want back, but I think she still has a lot of opportunity to take back the championship lead through the rest of the season, because she's shown she's had really strong pace. The other two on the top of my mind are Alba Larsen and Ella Lloyd, who had a quiet weekend here. I guess starting with Ella, I think she qualified 10th, which is not what I would expect from her based on, the fact that she was last year's top rookie. But then remembering back to last year's round in China, that was also her worst round then. So maybe it's a track-specific problem. Since we're going to Montreal next, like you said, she had an excellent Montreal round last year. There was the rescheduled Miami race, which meant 3 races in 1 round, and she was second in all 3 of them. So I think that will be a place for her to be like, I'm still in this title, because she definitely is. There's a lot of championship left. And then for Alba Larsen, she just had a really her round started so promising. She was fast in practice. She qualified on the front row for the first time, and she's chasing her first podium and her first win, of course, but she just couldn't put it together in the first race. There was a little collision with Emma, which dropped her through the field, and in the second race, she was leading until the safety car and just slid off on the restart, which I think is also a place that she will want back. So I think it's really unfortunate for her that she wasn't able to put it together. And I think how she bounces back from this, especially next weekend, will be telling of how the championship will go for her, because she clearly has the speed. She had pace last year. And I think everybody really expects podiums and wins as just a matter of time thing. But I think how she bounces back from that in Montreal will be really important for her championship fight, just to prove to herself, not even thinking about the outside world, just to prove to herself, I can fight for wins, I can be on the podium, because she clearly has the pace to do so. So I think those are my main 4 title contenders I'm thinking of. Nina Godman, who won the reverse grid race from reverse grid pole. I mean, it's great, and she did qualify again ahead of Ella, but for both of them, that's not where they want to be qualifying. So like Ella Lloyd, she will want to have a stronger qualifying to fight at the front in the main races. But she's also shown that her speed is there, or her racing IQ is there, that she can manage a race. So I think that's maybe a place where she's ahead of a Larsen at the moment, for example. So, and I know I'm mentioning all returning drivers. I don't think we'll see a rookie championship this year. Peyton Westcott was impressive, but she just, she's not at that level of speed plus experience yet, where I think she'll be able to contend for this title over the whole course of the season. But she could prove me wrong, but I do think it'll be between one of those returning.
Well, there was lots of other feeder series action to enjoy this weekend. Here's a quick rundown of everything you might have missed.
Keanu Alazari took 3 more podiums in the third and final round of the Eurocup 3 Spanish Winter Championship on his way to the title, finishing 52 points out of James Agosi in second place. René Lammers rounded out the championship top 3 as the highest placed rookie in the standings. Agosi won the first race of the weekend ahead of Alazari and Lammers, before Pradel won the sprint race, where Alazari and Lammers placed in reverse order. Enzo Tecronacciul took the final victory of the championship with Pradel in P2 and Al-Azari in P3. Meanwhile, in Eurocup 4, Noel Montero was crowned Spanish Winter Championship Drivers' Champion ahead of Nathan Ty and Vivek Canton. Canton took victory in the first race in Aragon with Montero in P2 and Rocco Coronel rounding out the rostrum. In the sprint race, it was Kasper Schormans who came out on top ahead of Rene Franco and Boris Linson. In the final race, Andrei Petrovic was victorious with Coronel and Ty completing the podium. To Formula Winter Series now, where champion Dries van Langendonk took victory in all 3 races at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. The McLaren Junior increased his championship winning margin to 139 points ahead of Thomas Behrman in P2 and Ari Bansel in P3. Van Langendonk was joined on the podium by Ethan Lennon and Alfie Slater in race 1, Thomas Behrman and George Proudfoot Nadler in the second race, and finally Bansel and Lennon in race 3. Stateside now, where Max Taylor won his first Indy Next race in round 2 of the championship on the streets of Arlington. Taylor overtook Enzo Fittipaldi in the dying minutes of the race to take the victory at the championship lead. Timček Koharchits crossed the line just behind Fittipaldi in 3rd place. Finally, in USF Pro 2000, rookie Leonardo Escarpini won the first race of the championship season opener in Arlington, ahead of Frankie Mossman and Michael Costello. In race 2, it was Jack Jeffers who came out victorious ahead of G3 Arios and Mossman, who leads the standings after the first round of racing.
Well, with F1 Academy back for 2026 amid the busiest weekend yet for FIDE Series, it's been hectic but thoroughly enjoyable, and that's all we've got time for from us here on Race Recap. Before we go, a reminder, you can follow us on our website at fideseries.net, on our Instagram at FIDESeriesNet, and on our news X at FIDE_series, and the live feed at FS Series Live. And a huge thank you to Calla for joining us today. If you have enjoyed this episode, please don't hesitate to leave a review, comment, like, or follow to stay up to date with all things FIDE Series. But for now, my name's Thomas Groves, and you've been listening to Race Recap brought to you by FIDE Series. Make sure to join George on Thursday for another episode of FIDE Focus, and we'll wish you goodbye.